Hey everybody, it's Bob Crossan, Senior Managing Editor for Water and Waste Digest, and throughout the month of September, we are featuring some interviews of personal and professional connections to our industry icon, David Drake. And today I have with me David Henderson. He is a founding partner of XPV Water Partners, which is a private equity firm that has invested in SmartCover since 2016. So David, thank you so much for being on the call. I appreciate you taking the time.
Great, glad to be here.
Yeah. So why don't we just start with how you met David? Could you talk a little bit how you first met him? What was your first interaction with him? What was your impression of him at that time?
Yeah, so first met David back, it's probably more like 2015. We were doing a lot of work on the whole area of storm management, sewers, really digging in to sort of understand what the challenges were there. And of course, we kept coming across this company called SmartCover and obviously the technology they were deploying. And so we had reached out to SmartCover and over some exchange of information, materials, eventually we said, hey, wow, these guys are really onto something. So we went down to San Diego, and lo and behold, I had the chance to meet with Greg and David, the two founders. And that's how I first met them.
Yeah. What was your impression of David at that first meeting? What did you think of him at that time?
Yeah, listen, clearly, sitting with David and Greg at the time, I was sitting back and you could clearly tell these are two very smart, passionate entrepreneurs that, really are focused on solving a real challenge in the industry. And that's probably the first big impression I got. I was like, wow, okay, these guys are really focused on solving a problem. And clearly, and I got to tell you, David, my first impression of him was like, wow, this guy's like a rocket scientist.
And he literally is.
We have this rocket scientist, it's kind of a really interesting thing. So we have this rocket scientist and he's in the sewers, right? So,
Yeah.
so anyways, it was a pretty interesting dialogue, but clearly we could tell, as we interact with them, these guys were onto something. And it certainly was matching up with what we were seeing in the marketplace. So it was pretty exciting. It's a very, very fun meeting.
Yeah, I like that they were trying to solve a very concrete problem. They knew this is the issue, this is the solution that we know we can provide because of our expertise, basically.
And they were very passionate about it, right? I mean, if you look at their skill sets, particularly David, he could be applying that, with Elon Musk today, right? Stuff going to Mars. But here they are, in the trenches, literally in the sewers, solving a real major problem. Which is interesting about the problem is it's an unseen problem, right? So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you guys have invested, or XPV has invested in SmartCover for a number of years now. What is it about? So you mentioned like this passion. I imagine that's a part of this too. But what is it about David that makes him such a great business partner in that regard? That what makes him and Greg worth investing in this regard?
Well, I think him and Greg, like any good business, it's always yin and yang, right? And so I think Greg and David are a yin and yang, right? Greg was much more focused more on the business side in terms of driving forward the business, the sales, and the company in terms of the employees and building it out and all the rest of that. And David was very focused on the technology and making sure that the technology was working the way it should, constantly solving the problems. Whenever you're innovating something like they've done at SmartCover, especially innovating inside a sewer, which is a very harsh environment, you've constantly thrown challenges. And so what I think was really attractive between Greg and David is that they really balance each other out, and I think that's how they were able to get SmartCover to be successful.
Yeah. Well, and I know that they have this long relationship of friendship even underlying that, and I imagine that helps out from a business perspective from them too, of like we can be truly honest to each other, and that helps us innovate and push forward too. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So on that like friendship part, like you've known David for a number of years now. Like on a personal level, I imagine that you've gotten to know him. What's he like to you on a personal level? What kind of person is he outside of this professional capacity that you work with him in?
David's one of those guys that I think would give the shirt off his back, right? He really is. No, he really. I mean, I'm sure you've interacted with him regarding now that he's an icon, he really does think of others. He's always very positive. I think that's another great attribute of David. And I think that's partly attributes to his inventiveness, right? He's always, he doesn't see, doesn't see a challenge. He sees an opportunity. He sees the glass is half full. That whole
Hmm.
concept. So, no, that's something I admire about him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and speaking of things to admire about him, are there certain qualities about David that you do admire that you wish that you could be better at yourself? Like, what's a quality of his that he exemplifies that you try to exemplify yourself? You're like, that's something that I would like to be better at.
Well, certainly, I'd like to be a rocket scientist. That'd be but I'm not sure I can. I'm not sure I can do that. But no, I would say, and it probably applies to his science and engineering background, and that is, he's very inquisitive, right? And he, and he's constantly asking questions, and therefore he's very inventive, right? And I think that's one of his, gifts, right? Is he sees things that others don't. And I think that's something that I think any entrepreneur, or any inventor, or scientist, engineer, would want to have. So that's something I certainly admire about what David brings to the table.
Yeah, and I found that in speaking with him, he's just always thinking. Like his brain is always working. He was telling me, yeah, he was telling me that he makes seismometers in his home because he just
I was just going to say, I was like, he's one of those guys that's going to be inventing for the rest of his life. Like, he just doesn't stop.
yeah, he's just gonna have a patent at some point, and he's just gonna rest on the laurels of it, basically. Although I couldn't see him resting on laurels. I think that he's
No,
always gonna be moving.
no,
So,
I agree.
well, yeah, why? So, just getting down to the last question here, why is David an industry icon in your eyes? What makes him an industry icon?
Well, I think you need to take a step back. Industry icon. So obviously that's an amazing accomplishment, and I think he deserves that title because if you look at what they've achieved, right, in terms of going back to 10, 15, 20 years, where they saw a problem that they were part of the industry, right? He works with one of the water councils and seeing the issue firsthand and then making a choice at that point in his career. Like I said, he could have gone on and worked on anything.
Hmm.
But he sat there and said, wow, this is going to be a real problem. And if you take climate change and all the things that are happening that are causing, stormwater issues and sewer issues. And then he dove in there and they just relentlessly never gave up. Right. And you probably know this in lots of water entrepreneurs and technology inventors. The water sector, you must be resilient. You must be, persistent. That whole notion of an entrepreneur never give up. That's certainly part of the water sector to get your technology from, the invention stage into the market. And I think David, and again, along with his partner there, Greg, they did an amazing job of seeing their way through that chasm. And obviously coming out the back end with, a great business that is solving, like we talked about earlier, a real challenge.
Hmm.
And I think, any industry icon, I think has to have those two things. They've done something to change the industry and they've solved a major issue. And
Hmm.
certainly what they've done with SmartCover in terms of what they're doing in sewer networks, they're definitely on the path to solving a major issue.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I do appreciate you taking the time, David. It's been great to
Oh,
talk to you and get a little more insight on David from a like that professional level of the investment. What really makes him tick.
great. Well, glad to be here. And obviously, we're very proud of what David's accomplished and SmartCover. So thank you. And it was great to talk to you.